Couple of things. Number one, the climate does change. I think everybody acknowledges that the climate does in fact change. Now, it is also true. Historically, the climate has been warming, and of course, historically, the climate has been warmer, the climate has been colder, and of course, we are going through a period of warming. Now, here is the reality. For about 15 years now, it has been relatively flat, but that's... Oh my God! But I hope there's maybe broad agreement on this, because there's broad agreement on this. A couple of things that I think are important to note. Number one, it is important for the United States of America to understand, to have the data, to have the information, to know how the climate is changing. And I really believe that. There is no reason that we shouldn't be able to study it and be aware of what is happening. Some of the challenges I have with people on my side of the aisle, to be honest with everybody, they don't even want to know. They want to cut all kinds of funding from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and NASA and others. They want to cut all kinds of funding that ultimately helps us know how the climate changes, and I believe that is important scientific information to have. I will also say, when you reference this with national security, that we have seen many rules and regulations come out of the previous administration that have not been helpful for the national security interests of the United States, and I'll give you a few examples. The waters of the U.S. rule. In fact, I'll start with the Clean Power Plan because that's more relevant to climate. Here's the situation. No, this is very important for the national security interests of the United States, because if the American economy is not strong, the United States is not strong. That's why this is an important issue. And if you look at the economic studies that have come out of the Clean Power Plan, the economic studies are overwhelmingly in agreement that this will damage the United States of economy to the tune of $2.7 trillion. Over the course of between now and 2030, $2.7 trillion. Now, ultimately, what was the Clean Power Plan all about? It was about reducing carbon emissions. And here I think is another important point to make. When you think about carbon emissions, we need to understand the carbon that is being produced, and we need to understand the carbon that is in the atmosphere. One area that I think is important that we ought not cut, and you see it in the skinny budget, an area that is cut is a program administered by NASA called PACE. And what it does is it looks at the phytoplankton in the ocean, and as carbon emissions increase, what happens is that phytoplankton grows. And ultimately, it absorbs that carbon and it takes it to the bottom of the ocean. Now that's a program, and this, not my opinion. So at the end of the day, I think this is an important program that must be preserved because it is important for us to understand how these ecosystems interact and work. Now, when you think about the Clean Power Plan, the damage that it did to American manufacturing, the damage that it did to the American worker and American employment, and the damage that it did to the American economy over the long term, in my estimation, if you look at the EPA models, I want to be clear about what the EPA models, these are the Obama administration's EPA models. Right. So the Obamacare, or the Obama administration's, I know, we don't want to go back there again, right? The Obama administration's EPA models indicated that if we were to put in place the Clean Power Plan, we would prevent global temperature, and these are the most liberal models as you can imagine. But these models indicated that we would prevent the climate from warming, I think it was over the next 50 years, exactly 0 I think it was 0.18 degrees Celsius over the next 50 years. Now, those are the Obama administration models. It is also true that those same models indicated that it would prevent the oceans from rising over that same period of time. It would prevent the oceans from rising exactly 2 widths of a sheet of paper. And in order to accomplish these objectives, in order to accomplish these objectives, what we were saying to my constituents is that we're going to damage and wreck your businesses. And in fact, a lot of businesses, that's what we were saying. Now here's the thing. When the American economy suffers for objectives, by the way, those EPA models are not agreed to by a whole host of other organizations that do this kind of modeling. But at the end of the day, when you're damaging the American economy, you're damaging the national security interests of the United States of America, and if those objectives don't result in anything material, we ought not do that. By the way, the Clean Power Plan has now been stayed by the Supreme Court of the United States. Also, the Sixth Circuit Court of the United States has also stayed the waters of the U.S. rule, which was created by the Obama administration. We have seen over and over again, and so in the last Congress, on the Environment Subcommittee, I'm on the Science Committee, Subcommittee on the Environment, in the last Congress, we had the EPA administrator come and answer questions that were related to these predictions and these models, and she ultimately didn't necessarily refute this data, but I asked her, look, if these are the end goals, I asked her, can you measure 2 widths of a piece of paper? I mean, can you measure? And the answer was no, we can't measure it. And I said, then why would we do this to ourselves? What would be the goal? And she said, leadership. That's what she said, leadership. Well, here's the reality. If you look at the carbon footprint, of the United States of America on a map, if you look at the carbon footprint, it's like this big. If you look at the carbon footprint of China on a map, it's like this big. It would seem that we have been leading and the rest of the world is not following. We need to make sure that we are putting America first in these situations, and we will comply when the rest of the world complies and not before, because